Hi everybody, and you're welcome to lesson 10 of French Grinds with the Galway Study Academy. Now, in this segment of today's lesson, what I'm going to cover with you is the subjunctive tense. Now, the subjunctive tense often gets a bad rap among students because it doesn't exist in English. So students tend to shy away from it or not use it. There are some students who learn off full sentences in the subjunctive and insert them into their written pieces and into the oral exam. And while that is impressive, it does show a certain level of determination and ambition. The student who really impresses is the student who uses it off the cuff or spontaneously in the oral exam or in the written exam. So, what I'd like to do today is to show you how to do that. I want to give you the subjunctive in a nutshell, to give you all the tools that you need to be able to use the subjunctive in the oral exam or in the written exam off the cuff, to make it applicable to the question or the topic that you're discussing. It would be too much to expect you as a Leaving Cert student to fully grasp and fully understand the subjunctive tense, given that it doesn't exist in English. Time is against you. You don't have the time to fully fully devote yourself to getting to grips with everything to do with the subjunctive. So what we'll do today is we'll have a look at the subjunctive tense in a nutshell. Now, if you have a quick look at your handout there, just inside the cover, I've got a grid here with the subjunctive in a nutshell. There's three parts to it: the clauses, the regular formation, and the important irregulars. And I'll explain as we go what each of those means and what each of them stands for. So I think the first thing we'll do is we'll have a quick look at the whiteboard. So if you have your pens at the ready, let's start filling this in. So first of all, I'm going to give you 6 subjunctive clauses that are very easy to learn and very common. Now, you don't see the subjunctive without a subjunctive clause. So we'll start off with the first one, and probably the most common and easiest one to learn, and that is il faut. And one that's quite similar to that is il est nécessaire. After that, then, that's 2, and both of those we might note beside mean it is essential that, or it's necessary that. Then I just mentioned it's essential that. Well, we can say that in French. Il est essentiel. Now, there are lots and lots of these subjunctive clauses, but we're just doing the nutshell version. So I'm just going to give you 6. We're going to take it that those 6 are the only ones we need. They're the only ones we're going to use. Il est important que. It's important that. Il est dommage que. Quel dommage. Il est dommage que. It's a pity that. And I'm going to give you one final one, and we'll go with bien que. Bien que means although or even though. That's 6. And that's plenty. That's all we need. So if you jot those 6 down, we'll take it. But that's the first part of our subjunctive. That's what we need as our subjunctive clauses. Now, why do we have subjunctive clauses? After the que comes the subjunctive tense. So in all of these, when you see the que is your intro for the subjunctive tense. That's what they all have in common. So in terms of recognizing the subjunctive tense, you might need to find a clause first of all, and the clause will always end with the word que. Now that we have our subjunctive clauses, we need to look at the formation of the tense. Now, this tense is very easily formed. It's not going to cause you much difficulty. And when you think back to the imperfect tense, you remember that there are 3 steps to forming the imperfect tense. There's 3 steps to forming the subjunctive tense. So let's note them. Step 1, step 2, and step 3. Step 1, we simply take the new form of the present. Step 2, we drop the ONS. And step 3, we add our endings. Now, our endings for the subjunctive couldn't be easier. We take E, ES, EE, then we have IONS, IEZ, and then we're back to ENT, ENT. When you think of regular ER verbs, those are your endings. The only odd ones there are the nu and the vous form, which are more similar to the imperfect endings. So it's like the imparfait, except with ER endings for most of the verbs. That's our regular formation. Now, underneath in the third box, I want you to note 4 irregular verbs, 4 commonly irregular verbs. Now, there are a whole host of irregular verbs in the subjunctive, which is what makes it kind of difficult and what turns students off from using it. However, the 4 that I'm going to give you, I've chosen particularly because they're easy. So let's divide into 4 there. We've got our 4 columns, and we're going to start off with, let's take the verb faire. Faire. We'll also take the verb pouvoir. Let's take the verb savoir, which means to know. And it's hard to get away without knowing être, the subjunctive as well. So let's make a note of faire. Faire in the subjunctive becomes fasse. Je fasse, tu fasses, il and elle fasse. Same with the nu, FASS, all the way down. And then il and elle with fasse as well. Now, if you remember our regular endings, they still apply here. We have E, ES, EE, IONS, IEZ, and ENT, ENT. So faire is not a verb that you're going to have to spend a whole lot of time learning off. Once you know your endings and you know that faire becomes fasse, you've got it. That's faire in the subjunctive. Now let's have a quick look at the verb pouvoir. Pouvoir in the subjunctive changes to puisse. Puiss. All the way down. Il and elle puisse. Same with the nu and the vous. Puiss, all the way down. And then il and elle again. Puiss. And again, our endings haven't changed. Our endings are the same as those for regular verbs. We have E, ES, EE, IONS, IEZ, and ENT. So pouvoir is not a difficult verb to remember in the subjunctive. You just need to remember that pouvoir becomes puisse and the endings are the same. Now let's have a look at savoir. And you can probably see the pattern now and understand why I've chosen these verbs. Savoir becomes sache, all the way down, SACH. Nu and the vous, and il and elle. SACH all the way down. Endings are the same. We have E, ES, EE, IONS, IEZ, and ENT and ENT. Now, être is the one that stands out from that because it doesn't follow the same pattern. However, if you think of the verb voir in the present tense, then you'll know the verb être in the subjunctive. You just swap the V with the S. So it becomes je sois, tu sois, il and elle soient, nous soyons, vous voyez, vous soyez, and then il and elle soient, SOIENT. Like I said, if you were to swap the S all along there with a V, you'd have the verb voir in the present tense. So let's just note beside that, like voir, if you've already learned off voir in the present tense, then you know this. Like voir in present. And there we have it. Now, everything that you have on that page, that's all you need. You don't need any more in order to succeed with the subjunctive tense. You've enough to be able to form it. So let me just come back here. So if you've finished taking that down, you should have a page that looks something like this. There we have our clauses. Il faut que, il est nécessaire que, il est essentiel que, il est important que, il est dommage que, and bien que. There's our regular formation underneath, and those are our 4 important irregular verbs. Faire becomes fas, pouvoir becomes puis, savoir becomes sache, and être becomes je sois, tu sois. Just like voir, but with an S. And maybe just note as well that il y a becomes il y est, there is or there are, which is also a handy thing to know. Now, what I'd like to do is to put that into practice. It's all well and good knowing that, but how do I come up with that stuff on the fly? So if we maybe take a look at this page here, I'm going to come up with 3 sentences to do with these kind of topical subjects that could come up in a written section, or they could be the kind of thing that you want to prepare for the oral as well. So let's imagine that I wanted to come up with a sentence on the housing crisis. So let me just come up with one in English first of all, and then let's see if we can translate it. So my subjunctive clauses, I have it's a pity that. Well, it is a pity, isn't it? In Ireland, the housing crisis. So it is a pity that. Now, I want to use the verb pouvoir. It's a pity that we aren't able to find housing. It's a pity that we're not able to find housing. So let's write that in. Pity that we cannot find housing with affordable rents. There we go. That's a nice sentence. Now we'll start off with it's a pity that. That's my subjunctive clause. So I'm going to put that in bold. We cannot. That is the verb that follows the subjunctive clause, which means that has to be in the subjunctive. Now, we cannot, we can, we can't, to be able to, that's the verb pouvoir. Now, housing, we'll just note beside that, if you don't know what the French for housing is, you'll probably know it by the time the Leaving Cert comes along. It's du logement. And affordable rents are des loyers abordables, which came up in a listening actually, I think in 2025, or could have been 23, I'm not sure. Right, so it's a pity that we cannot find housing with affordable rents. Now, let's try and put that into French. What I'd like you to do now at this stage is I'd like you to hit the pause button, and I want you to try to translate that yourself. Try to put that into French, open up the sheet with the subjunctive in a nutshell, and you should be able to manage it. Okay, so let's see what you came up with. So it's a pity that is il est dommage que. Now, when it comes to writing something in the negative, I always say put it into the positive first. So it's the verb pouvoir. I want to say we can. So that's going to be nous, and then we have puis, and I'm going to add ions. So il est dommage que nous puissions. Now I need to put that into the negative, so I'm going to put ne before it and pas after it. Que nous ne puissions pas. The verb to find is trouver. Now I've already said housing is du logement. And with affordable rents, that would be avec des loyers abordables. Now, there's a sentence in French that would be unbelievably impressive if you were to insert that into a written piece. Il est dommage que nous ne puissions pas trouver du logement avec des loyers abordables. Right, let's try it again. I'm going to come up with a sentence now off the cuff in English to do with war that involves the subjunctive tense. So let me see. I think it's essential that Ireland does more to resolve the war between Israel and Palestine. Now, let's start off with il est. All right, I'll put it in English first of all. Sorry, it's essential that. Now, I don't want to say the government because every student says le gouvernement. So let's try Micheál Martin. or whoever is the Taoiseach. I think Micheál Martin is the Taoiseach. It's essentially that Micheál Martin. Now, I want to use the verb faire here, so to do. So I'll say does more to resolve the war between Israel and Palestine. It's essential that Micheál Martin does more to resolve the war between Israel and Palestine. Or you could just change Micheál Martin to the Irish government. Maybe I'm putting too much weight on his shoulders there. You might be thinking, well, what can Micheál Martin do? Right, hit the pause button. Try your best to translate as much of that into French as you can. Okay, let's translate it into French. So we have il est essentiel que, that is our subjunctive clause. Now we have Micheál Martin. Il est essentiel que Micheál Martin. Now I have the verb faire. That needs to be in the subjunctive. Fasse plus, does more. To resolve is pour résoudre la guerre, to resolve the war. And then I have between Israel and Palestine. That's going to be entre l'Israël et la Palestine. All right, and I've got a couple of accents that I'm missing there, so I'll just insert them. And we have an umlaut on Israel. So what have we got there? Il est essentiel que, that is my subjunctive clause. Micheál Martin fasse, that is my subjunctive. And the rest of it is just words. Il est essentiel que Micheál Martin fasse plus pour résoudre la guerre entre l'Israël et la Palestine. Very impressive sentence. Now, let's try one more. And I want to come up with a sentence to do with the stress of the Leaving Cert. Let's say you're in your oral and you're saying, oh yeah, it's really stressful and why? Or it could come up in a written piece. This time I'm going to try and say although. Right. Although I know that there are lots of alternative options. Although I know that there are lots of alternative options after the Leaving Cert, it's very stressful. So it's very stressful all the same. So even though I know there's a lot of alternative options after the Leaving Cert, it's still very stressful. Right, let's go with that one. So although is a subjunctive clause in French, and it's bien que. So what comes after the que has to be in the subjunctive. And now I'm going with the verb to know, which is savoir. And I know that that's sache. So bien que je sache, now that there are, qu'il y a, beaucoup, spelling, beaucoup d'options alternatives après le bac. It's very stressful. C'est très stressant. All right, and I'm missing a couple of accents there, so let's just put those in. Accent grave on the E, accent grave on the E. So there, what have I got? Bien que is my subjunctive clause. It's one of my 6. Savoir is one of my irregular verbs, of my 4 verbs, and then the rest of it is just vocabulary. So bien que je sache qu'il y a beaucoup d'options alternatives après le bac, c'est très stressant. So there we have it, 3 essential sentences that I just came up with there off the cuff. If you could reach a stage where you're able to do that off the cuff, that would be unbelievably impressive in your Leaving Cert. All you need to learn off, all you need to know is what's on that page, the subjunctive tense in a nutshell. There you have it. It's on page 2 there, just inside your handout. Learn it off and try to come up with a few sentences off the cuff. Just use your 6 clauses, your 4 irregular verbs, and you have a whole host of regular verbs once you know the endings as well. Just the 3 steps to it. So that's it. That's the subjunctive.